We have two more speakers before we move to Q&A. So I would like to welcome both in person, Tiffany Yap is a conservation scientist at the Center for Biological Diversity. She holds a doctorate in environmental science and engineering and has published studies in Science, EcoHealth, and other scientific journals. Her work has been featured in major news outlets, including the LA Times, San Francisco Chronicle, and NPR. And joining us remotely via Zoom is Meital Smith, an illustrator and artist from Seattle, Washington. She graduated from Cornish College of the Arts with a BFA in design in 2021 and is currently pursuing an MAT at the Rhode Island School of Design. Please welcome Tiffany and Meital.
Hi everyone.
How's that volume? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Everyone can hear? Okay. Great. Well, thank you. Thank you, Sam and Lindsay, for having us here and for the amazing speakers. You all did such awesome talks. It's a little bit intimidating following everyone. So thank you to the audience for also coming and staying and paying attention until this last talk. So thank you. So Meital and I are going to talk about a graphic novel that we just published in October called Tales of the Urban Wild, A Puma's Journey. And I think it speaks a lot to empathy and what's going on in the environment. And I think the best way to kind of go into it is to just talk a little bit about the work I do, because it was very heavily influenced by the work that I do. So I work at the Center for Biological Diversity, as Sam mentioned, as a scientist, and I work in the Urban Wildlands program. And if any of you have heard of the Center for Biological Diversity before, you probably know us mostly for lawsuits. I work with a lot of attorneys, really glad to have them have my back, but I am just the scientist that kind of lurking in the forefront. So I guess that's not really lurking, but y'all know what I mean. And so we do file a lot of lawsuits against developers and agencies when they're not complying with environmental laws. And so that's kind of one of the things that we're proud of, is we are a watchdog or a nonprofit organization working to conserve sensitive species and habitats. Another thing that we do, though, is try to focus on science-driven policy and getting good environmental policies passed so that we can protect the species that need protecting. So for example, in California, we recently passed the Safe Roads and Wildlife Protection Act, which requires the California Department of Transportation, or Caltrans, to build more wildlife crossings on our roads to make them safer for animals to cross, but also for people to drive on. We also passed a bill called the Safe Ecosystems Act, which restricts the amount of toxic rat poisons or rodenticides to be used on the landscape. And so that helps a lot of the species that are not the target of those rodenticides, so that like mountain lions, raptors, other scavengers. And so that's a really big part of the work that I do. But then we also do media work, where what we're trying to do is change hearts and minds, or encourage those hearts and minds to take action and do more to protect the world around us. And so that's kind of where I learned, kind of coming from an academic background, I learned that I very much want things to be as scientifically accurate as possible. But what I also learned is that when you're doing advocacy and media and other kinds of outreach, that's not always what gets received, right? And so really that's where empathy comes in, and trying to marry those two things together to try to get more people aware and open to understanding more what the situation is for the animals around us and how we can better safely coexist. And so an opportunity arose to do a graphic novel about climate and the environment. And I was like, wow, that's a really broad topic. Like, I'm not totally sure what to do with that, but I do a lot of work to protect mountain lions in California. So in 2018, there was a study that came out that showed that mountain lions in California are struggling, particularly in Southern California and along the Central Coast. Our roads and development have sliced through their habitat and fragmented it so much that we've created these genetically distinct subpopulations of mountain lions. And we've created an extinction vortex for them, right? So they're isolated, there's a lot of inbreeding going on, they're being hit on roads by cars, they're dying from rat poison, they're dying in wildfires because we've boxed them in so much it's difficult for them to escape. There's also poaching, and then oftentimes when there's conflict with people, like say a mountain lion kills a goat or something like that, they can be killed in retaliation. So there are all these different things and they're all human related, right? We're causing all of it, including human-induced climate change. And so in thinking about the graphic novel, it was like, oh, well, this would be a really cool way to have more inclusive conservation storytelling where we try to connect with more people and hopefully at the end of it, people feel more connected to the species, but also the biodiversity around us, and the potential solutions for coexistence. And so we're gonna read you an excerpt today from the book, and it's kind of like a side story within the book, but I thought it would work well for this because it deals with wildfire. And even though fire is a natural and necessary process in California for a lot of habitats and a lot of species, but we really have changed the historical fire regime throughout the many different habitats, but in a lot of different ways. Forcefully removing Native Americans from the land and criminalizing their fire practices, and then just the way we've been managing the land hasn't been conducive to healthy fire, and that's when there's more kind of destructive and catastrophic fires happening for people, but also for animals. But before we get into that excerpt, I know Meital is here. Thanks again, Meital, for joining us, and she's going to talk a little bit about her process and her approach to the story in the book.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I can see tiny little dots of you, but I'm going to speak to them anyway. Oh, hello. Thank you all for having me here. It's really inspiring to hear all of you talk as like a young artist and like not a scientist, but as somebody who cares very deeply about the environment. I was really excited to get in on this project, like as kind of my first big graphic novel project, because like I said, I care very deeply about climate change and the environment. So to have a project that aligned with my values so much as like my first big project felt like a huge stroke of luck. And I really resonate with what Sam said earlier in his talk about to know something is to love something, because I did not know Pumas before this project at all. Like I did not draw a Puma before I got hired for this project, like ever in my life. So I feel like I have really come to know and love these animals through Tiffany's wonderful research and through the hours spent slaving over an iPad making this project. And one thing that me and Tiffany really talked about, and that was important to both of us, was figuring out how to portray emotion on these animals without like fully anthropomorphizing them. Like it was really important to both Tiffany and I that they still like look like the animals that we were trying to convey. So we decided on these character designs that like very very much resemble the animals that they are in real life, but like with little tweaks, like Sam said, the eyes are really important for emotion, so making the eyes a little bigger, like having, I don't know if you see on our main character Puma over here, but these like more defined eyebrows than you might see in the wild, but they help you like get a little bit of emotion from this drawing, and also like a little tuft of hair that makes him like a little bit more approachable, you know? So like we made these pretty intentional decisions to make a wild animal seem more approachable and empathetic, that hopefully resonates with the readers. And I think it does from the reviews that we've been getting. So yeah, with that we can jump into showing you a bit of a book. Let's see.
Hey, Meital. I actually, Meital, sorry, can you hear me? Yeah, okay. I actually can't see it on this screen, so do you want to read all of it? And if you want me to explain anything, I'm happy to.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I can read all of it.
Great.
Okay. All right. Here we have this man saying, "Something's wrong. Why didn't she leave when she saw us?" And they're referring to this puma that they found in the backyard after a fire. "I think she's hurt. She keeps licking her paws." "Poor thing." "The biologists are on their way." The poor puma. Yeah, I'm not gonna scream because I don't know how loud. I'm not getting one out here, but it's the puma is very much in pain here. His bed isn't quite. "I'm so glad you're here. It's getting hot and she hasn't moved much. I think she's in pain. The scientists oh boy, help me out, Tiffany. How do you say it?
Anesthetize.
Anesthetize, thank you. The puma, so they can examine her. She's about 5 years old. I hope she didn't have any kittens that got left behind in the fire. We need to get her back to the lab to treat her wounds. Her burns are at least a week old, maybe 2. That explains why she's so underweight. Oh no, she was slowly starving. How awful. We've seen 2 dead pumas with similar injuries. They died of starvation or severe infections on their wounds. But I think we still have time to help her." The scientists quickly set her up and treat her burns with tilapia skin. "How is she not burned anywhere else on her body?" She outran the fire, but for some reason went back into the burn zone while the ground was still hot. Maybe she got spooked by the containment efforts ahead of the fire. So here they are putting tilapia skin on her burned paws. Using sterilized tilapia skin to treat severe burns was first used by medical doctors in Brazil. Its high amounts of collagen and antibacterial properties help wounds heal faster and prevent infection. It also reduces pain. Tilapia skin treatments are still in clinical trials and are not yet approved for people in the US, but promising results inspired veterinarians to pioneer its application to burned wildlife. Pets also suffer from wildlife burns. They're benefiting from these treatments too. Within 6 weeks, the female puma's burns have healed and she has gained weight. The scientists, I need to move this so I can read it. Okay. The scientists decide she's ready to be released back into the wild. They release her in unburned habitat near where she was found, where she can easily find food and water. Hiss. Not happy about being carried. They add her to their study and collar her so they can keep track of her progress. She's sniffing around, and out she goes. Yeah. So that's